another edition of Gavin Rishaw Presents on my channel, Gboot2786. This is Gavin Rishaw Presents. I hope all is well, whoever you are, wherever you are, that you all are enjoying your day, given the circumstances that we all are in with this coronavirus pandemic. I'm praying that things will get better. Now, I wanted to do this video, and I'm going to show this brother's picture in a little bit. It's not him on the photograph here, but I'll show you just briefly a friend of mine who actually did this video and brought this to my attention. His name is Brian Ponder. Brian Ponder, this is him here. Now, Brian is an attorney outside of Atlanta, Georgia. He's licensed to practice law, I believe, in 2 different states. My brother deals with federal bankruptcy and personal and civil litigation, so special shout out to him. The guy is he's a millionaire too. But that's neither here nor there. But much respect to this brother. He did this video.
At the Ahmaud Arbery case, and send a letter. If you want to send a template that I made, just make yourself up one, send it. Let your voice be heard. We don't want to live in a society where people can just, be vigilantes, take the law into their own hands, or even worse, just go out and murder someone with no consequences. That's not the society we want. If we let that happen once, it's going to happen again and again. Don't wait till it knocks on your front door. So I've developed a template. You have the email to the chief of police. We need to get those killers arrested. Let the justice system take its course. All right? Let's get it done.
Now, shout out to brother Brian. Now, what Brian is referring to, guys, is this case that is out of Brunswick, Georgia, involving this young brother that you see right here. All right, this is Ahmaud Arbery. Ahmaud Arbery was jogging outside a community, a white community in Brunswick, Georgia, and apparently 2 individuals, a Gregory McMichael and a Travis McMichael, who were armed with guns, 2 white men followed him on suspicion that he was breaking into cars. Now, in Georgia, and Brian will get to this, and you'll see his letter in a second. Georgia, of course, like a lot of southern states, has a stand your ground law. But in Georgia, they also have a citizen's arrest statute that's in there. Now, that's going to play in the factor into this case. Now, I'm not licensed to practice in Georgia, but we can still look at laws and form our own opinions about it. Now, this brother was killed on February 23rd, 2020 by Travis McMichael. And you'll see from the information that Brian has in this letter, I've also written another letter to Police Chief John Powell that no arrest has been made in this case. And apparently they followed this brother, trying to get him to stop. By the own admission of the shooter, Travis McMichael, he got out the car with the shotgun, and supposedly there was a fight that ensued. And naturally, you would think if someone were coming at you with a gun, your instinct would be to fight for your life. And that's what this man did. And of course, though, in the police report, they're claiming he fought for the gun and a shot went off, he killed him, and they actually shot him twice. I'll share the police report with you all later in this video. But this is brother Ahmaud Arbery, who was killed. Now, this was February 23rd, 2020. Okay. As of today, it is April 30th. You see it right there, 2020. No arrest has been made in this homicide. Now, this is the story on NBC News. Of course, this was also on the New York Times. I couldn't read the New York Times because they want to charge you, obviously, to read their articles. But this is written by David K. Lee. Relatives of a black man gunned down while jogging in Southwest Georgia by white men who chased him, believing he was a burglar, said Thursday they're discouraged by the lack of charges in the case. Ahmaud Arbery's relatives say the 25-year-old was a victim of racial violence. Arbery was killed in Brunswick, a coastal city about midway between Savannah and Jacksonville, Florida, on February 23rd as he was running through the quiet neighborhood of Saltalia Shores. Anybody from the Brunswick area, let me know what that area is like. If you guys can comment. If you live out in Georgia or know anything about it, I don't know too much, but read further. These two men chased down Arbery, identified by police as Brunswick resident Gregory McMichael and his son Travis McMichael, 34, have not been charged and the investigation is ongoing. The victim's mother, Wanda Cooper, stated that, "I'm feeling very discouraged at this point. The tragedy happened back in February and there still has not been an arrest." The case has been referred to District Attorney Thomas Durden, based in Hinesville, 70 miles away, due to concerns over a political conflict of interest. McMichael, here we go, Gregory McMichael, is a retired investigator for the local prosecutor in Brunswick, which means he is former law enforcement. That's just from my information, he's a former police officer as well. The case was briefly in the hands of DA George Barnhill, based in Waycross, but he recused himself because his son works for prosecutors in Brunswick. But in a memo from Barnhill to police, the DA says he believes Gregory and Travis McMichael should not be indicted. He said the father and son had probable cause to believe the victim might be a burglar and were within their rights to arm themselves and chase him down. Huh? Let's read further. The prosecutor said video footage of the shooting made by a neighbor shows Arbery to be the aggressor. Given the fact that Arbery initiated the fight, at the point Arbery grabbed the shotgun, under Georgia law, McMichael was allowed to use deadly force to protect himself, according to the memo reported in the New York Times. A Glynn County police spokesman declined comment on the probe and referred all questions to Durden, who has not publicly discussed the case and could not be immediately reached on Thursday. Arbery's family is demanding that the Georgia Bureau of Investigation take over the investigation and pass on their findings to a special prosecutor. There are obviously sensitive aspects about this case anytime there is a victim of racial violence, family lawyer Lee Merritt said. Oh, they got Lee Merritt. We believe that any reasonable fact finder will return an indictment for murder against at least Mr. Travis, but likely against the two Mr. Gregory McMichael, to be considered as an accessory to murder. The family fears Arbery's plan will slip through the cracks as America focuses on COVID-19 pandemic that shut down much of the nation's economy, according to Merritt and Cooper. Now, according to the police report, they first spotted, and according to what you read here, they're claiming that they spotted Arbery on foot hauling ass down Santilla Drive and immediately thought the young man was a burglar who had recently been targeting the neighborhood, according to a Glynn County police report. McMichael grabbed his .357 Magnum as Travis McMichael took out a shotgun, and they jumped into their truck to give chase. Stop, we want to talk to you," the elder McMichael told police. He shouted at Arbery. A third man, a neighbor only identified as Roddy, also joined the chase and jumped into the pair's pickup truck, according to police. After the man eventually caught up with Arbery, there was a fatal confrontation. Now, let's think about this realistically. You're jogging in the neighborhood. Now, I wasn't there. I don't have video footage. I don't know exactly. All I know is what happened from the police report. I wasn't there. But you have someone, and from the onset, they're not identified as police. That's one thing, just from reading this. So there is no legal right for him to stop, if they're not identified, if they have not identified themselves as law enforcement, and you see some dudes in a pickup truck giving chase to you with guns. Now, I'm all about, and let me say this too, this video that I'm doing it's not anti-Second Amendment either. I want, you all know that I'm pro-Second Amendment. I always encourage black people to look at joining gun rights organization to look and get their Second Amendment game up because of things just like this. Get your concealed carry license. Protect yourself, protect your family. There's nothing wrong with going to a shooting range. Nothing at all. So this video, let me be clear, it's not a propaganda piece for the Democratic Party. It's also not a propaganda piece for the Republican Party. It's not an endorsement of the NRA, but it is an endorsement of the Second Amendment. You have rights like everyone else. So it's not an endorsement of the NRA, it's an endorsement of 2A. That's Second Amendment. Now, as you read further, they say this neighbor, Roddy, joined in the chase, jumped into the pair's pickup truck. They caught up with Arbery, and there was a fatal confrontation. Michael stated the unidentified male began to violently attack Travis, and the two men started fighting over the shotgun, at which point Travis fired a shot, and then a second later, there was a second shot. The report didn't specifically say if Arbery was armed. It made no mention of any weapon being found on his body. That is correct. I've read it, and it did not indicate that Arbery was armed. And his attorney, the family attorney, Lee Merritt, has stated the victim was not armed. I don't know how these guys, S. Lee Merritt and Benjamin Crump, keep getting these cases, but that's what they're known for, So, anyway, I digress. Gregory McMichael told police he believed he had spotted the victim in his neighborhood days earlier and that he had stuck his hand down his pants, which led them to believe the male was armed, according to the police report. The father and son could not be reached for comment Thursday at several publicly listed telephone numbers for the pair. The victim was a former high school football player and was a health buff who jogged regularly, his family said. I knew at some point he went to that subdivision as a jogger. As a mother, I never worried about him jogging or just running as long as he stayed within the streets. No one should bother him. Now, authorities have not linked Arbery to the burglaries in the neighborhood cited by George McMichael. Merritt conceded that Arbery might have gone through the frame of a house under construction in the neighborhood, something that isn't a crime, and definitely didn't justify the deadly shooting, he said. That dwelling did not have doors or windows, he said, under the law in the state of Georgia. In order to commit a crime by entering someone's dwelling, you have to break a seal, break a door, forcibly enter something that is otherwise locked. Now, this was Brian's letter that I wanted to share with you all. So, Brian states, wrote this letter, and I've written a letter myself that I'll share with you all. It's very short, and simple, and straight to the point. Of course, as you read, Chief Powell has really handed this case over to there's been no arrest made. It's been handed over to District Attorney Tom Durden of Liberty County out in Georgia because there's so many conflict of interest in this case. But this is Brian's letter that you guys can read. So Brian says, first, thank you for your continued public service to the good citizens of Glynn County, Georgia. I am a Georgia native, current resident of Atlanta, Buckhead, Georgia, and New York trial lawyer. I'm writing regarding the Ahmaud Arbery homicide that occurred in your jurisdiction on February 23rd, 2020. I, like you, have reviewed the incident report for G20-11303 by Officer J. Brandberry, 128. Clearly, the nation now, just recently learned of this horrific killing, is in shock and dismay of it. More so, I surely speak for many when I say that we are in dismay that no arrest has been made. It has been rumored that your department may have been unduly influenced by a letter from District Attorney George Barnhill, who you guys just read about, who properly recused himself from the case due to a conflict of interest. Without being privy to such letter, it has been reported that the letter may have mentioned that the deceased had a criminal history of shoplifting and probation violation from back in 2018 or so. So there we go, guys, with the slandering of the victim. This is how it typically starts in a police shooting or a shooting of an unarmed black man. But we'll get to that later. Also, the letter or any other communication may have alluded to Georgia's citizen's arrest statute. I implore you to disregard all communications from Mr. Barnhill as he has a conflict of interest. Further, I implore you to arrest the suspect or suspects for their involvement in the homicide of Mr. Arbery. You are authorized to make the arrest immediately under the authority of OCGA Statute 17-4-20, Paragraph A. Your officers should be cognizant of the fact that the involved suspects possess deadly weapons. With respect to Mr. Barnhill's letter of recusal, which may explain the arrest delay, allow me to discuss the relevance of prior criminal history and Georgia's citizen's arrest statute. First, the deceased's possible criminal history or probation violation is an opposite to this case. Second, Georgia's citizen's arrest statute, OCGA 17-4-60, is also inapplicable in this case. It provides a private person may arrest an offender if the offense is committed in his presence or within his immediate knowledge. If the offense is a felony and the offender is escaping or attempting to escape, a private person may arrest him upon reasonable and probably good grounds of suspicion. Okay, so he goes further. Where's that? Hold on a second, I had it here. Where is it? Okay, here we go. You may immediately recognize that neither Gregory McMichael or Travis McMichael witnessed or had immediate knowledge of any criminal offense by Ahmaud Arbery on February 23rd, 2020. That is correct. Now, in the report, and I'm going to post it for you, you can go there, they called in a possible burglary. They did not state they saw for a fact Ahmaud breaking into someone's car or that they broke in and they saw him with things that were in that car, as in taking things out of that car. They did not admit that. Now, we go further. This is evidenced by Officers Brainberry's report of the statement of the father and son suspects, their father and son. Notably, Gregory McMichael alleged that there had been several break-ins in the neighborhood. There was no mention of any break-in having occurred that day that they witnessed or learned of. In fact, Gregory McMichael admitted that his hunch regarding the deceased was from a video, meaning that it didn't occur that day. If it was from a video, it was from a previous matter. Your officers' reports record statements of the McMichaels among themselves in chasing the deceased Mr. Arbery, who was jogging in their neighborhood. Mr. Arbery did not bother them. The McMichaels pulled up to Mr. Arbery in their truck, accosted Mr. Arbery, and then killed him. Mr. Arbery was unarmed, never committed any antecedent acts against the McMichael men. At best, when Mr. Arbery was accosted by Gregory and Travis McMichael, who jumped out of their truck with their .357 Magnum and shotgun, Mr. Arbery may have tried to defend himself. Clearly to no avail, Mr. Arbery stood no chance to the armed duo who were prepared to kill him. Mr. Barnhill may have alluded to a defense of self-defense, but that is not available to the suspects. Of course, it's important to mention there was another gentleman, and I don't think Brian mentioned this, that was with them, the Roddy character. While self-defense, stand your ground laws apply in Georgia, there are 3 exclusions. Under OCGA Statute 16-321B, 21B, a person is not justified in using force under the circumstances specified in subsection A of this code section if he initially provokes the use of force against himself with the intent to use such force as an excuse to inflict bodily harm upon the assailant. 2, is attempting to committing or fleeing after the commission or attempted commission of a felony. Or 3, was the aggressor or was engaged in the combat by agreement unless he withdraws from the encounter and effectively communicates to such other person in his intent to do so, and the other, notwithstanding, continues or threatens to continue the use of unlawful force. Per report indicates, the McMichaels accosted the deceased initially aggressed upon him. As such, the McMichaels are the initial aggressors and cannot enjoy the benefit of self-defense OCGA Statute 16-3-21B1. Also, argument can be made that OCGA Statute 16-3-21B23 apply. Chief Powell, by no means do I expect you to parse through the legal contentions of the suspects. Truly, that is the duty of the trier of fact in our justice system to weigh the suspect's defenses. The trier of fact obviously being a jury or a judge. Clearly, with the facts collected by your officer, your duty now is to make an arrest of the suspects. That is what the good people of Glynn County, Georgia depend on you to do as Chief of Police. The nation is aware that there has been a delay in the administration of justice in this homicide. Notably, district attorneys are playing hot potato with the matter due to various conflicts of interest. Very important to point out. Fortunately, your duty is unfettered by the apparent conflicts of interest that have plagued the DAs. Sir, your duty remains, and we trust that you will do the right thing and let justice take its course. It is my understanding that at the present, the Honorable Tom Durden may be the prosecutor on this matter. He is. My emphasis. I implore you that you make the lawful arrest of Gregory McMichael or Travis McMichael for the homicide of Ahmaud Arbery on February 23rd, 2020 in Brunswick, Georgia. I end with this quote: "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Sincerely, Brian L. Ponder, Esquire." Very great. Very good, Brian. Very good. Great indeed. Now, I also wrote a letter as well in regards to this case. Brian brought this to my attention, so that was the main reason why I went ahead and did this as well. I'm trying to put his picture up now. Sorry guys, there we go. I hate when this thing does that. Okay. This was my letter. And guys, you should, you guys can take a look. I don't want to bore you all with reading this, but I basically inquire the same thing. Dear Chief Powell, I write this letter to you as a concerned American citizen. I am deeply disturbed, saddened, and outraged to learn of the death of Ahmaud Arbery. After reading the police report, After reading the police report of Officer J. Brandon Berry, I'm trying to comprehend why no arrest was made for murder committed by one Travis McMichael and accessory before the fact for his father, Gregory McMichael. I got his name mixed up, excuse me. It was Gregory McMichael. I put George, excuse me. on February 23rd, 2020, Mr. Arbery had committed no crime. He was unarmed and was simply jogging in the neighborhood. While he may have been suspected by the duo of a crime due to a rash of quote-unquote break-ins in that community, this was a job strictly for law enforcement officials to investigate once probable cause has been established. The fact that Mr. Gregory McMichael was a former law enforcement officer did not give him a right to follow this man while armed with firearms. From what we have seen in recent history, the killings of unarmed black men by white police officers have gone mostly unpunished. Apparently, these men were not active law enforcement. As an officer of the court, I respect the right of due process, and both McMichaels do deserve fairness and impartiality in a criminal proceeding. Henceforth, an arrest must be made in this matter. The trier of fact shall determine the guilt or innocence of the accused. In conclusion, I request that this matter is not only investigated thoroughly, but that justice be served for Mr. Ahmaud Arbery. As a man sworn to uphold the law and to protect its citizens, I am sure you can understand why I write this letter. Thank you, yours truly, Gavin M. Richard. So, okay, so you guys see why it's important to get engaged there, minus the little typo I had. Sorry about that, but it's very saddening and disappointing that we have to deal with this thing on a daily basis. And it's really sad that this happened 2 months ago, and the mother is correct, because everyone right now is not really worried about anything but this coronavirus pandemic. It's been eating at us for almost 2 months now. We're going into May, and everyone is at home on lockdown for the most part, and we got stuff like this we're dealing with. 2 months and no arrest has been made. You guys, if you want to send an email to the sheriff office, his name is John Powell. His email is jrpowell@glynn-georgia-ga.gov. I will post that. He has a fax as well. There's also a fax number. You can fax the district attorney's office to thoroughly investigate this, to state that an arrest needs to be made. I have faxed this letter over to the governor as well as to the district attorney's office. I will provide that for you all in the video. But, just stay safe, be strong. I'll holla.